Hi guys, Kaza here. Welcome back. We're back with Hakuoki. We're about to start chapter 6. And Kondo has learned that Hijikata is a fury, so Kondo's having a really bad time, I would say. But anyway, let's get going into the next chapter. And before we start that, I'd like to remind you guys, if you haven't already, subscribe to the channel, like the video if you like it at the end, and I'll see you at the end. I'll see you at the end. Which this will probably be a really long episode split into 2 parts, so just giving you guys a head up. So there won't be like a cutoff. I'm just gonna record the whole thing through. So let's go. Chapter 6. Eventually. March 1868. Compared to January last episode. Chapter. We returned to Edo and met up with Nagakura and the rest of our forces at Hatamoto Mansion. Kondo was disconsolate from his first lost battle, more so than most of the captains had expected. Even after he returned to headquarters, he spent most of his time moping. Yoshinobu, the supreme commander of the shogunate army, was ordered out of the imperial court and into house arrest at the Kanai temple in Ueno. Sorry, wrong one. Head temple of the Tendai Buddhism in the Kanto region is where several Tokugawa shoguns are buried. It's located anyway. Then a place to visit. The imperial court was now in the hands of the Satsuma and the Chonsu, and it was becoming painfully clear that the loyalist faction was in a numerically untenable position. Bleh. Sometime later, I was sweeping the entrance when I looked up to see Saito on his way out. Oh, Saito, are you off to work? Have a good day. When you have a moment, could you make some of your delicious tea and take it to the commander? Without even waiting for me to respond, he gave a curt nod and was off. Saito had never been talkative, but lately he seemed especially taciturn. Perhaps he was still upset over what had happened. Are you guys really leaving? What? Yeah, it wasn't easy, but we've made up our minds. Our path is in Kondo's. I don't think we can follow him anymore. Oh, it's gonna be lonely here without you. What are you going to do now? We haven't quite figured that out yet. We'll be still taking it to the Imperial Army. That's not going to change. Souji, I'm sure you'll be hearing stories in a couple months about how we killed 100 rebels apiece. Heck, probably a couple weeks. Well, take care. Okay, you too. We had been so close. It was sad to see them go. Then again, I'd only known them for a few years. I think that's quite a while. How sad their departure had been for Kondo, Hijikata, and Saito, who had known them much, much longer. Okita's condition worsened, and he had been moved to a separate house in Sindagaya. One by one, our friends from the Seihei Hall were disappearing. Dojo Edo taught the Tensei wrenched in style. His owner is Isami Kondo, a 4th generation head. Many Shinsengumi members studied or lived there. Oh, hey, I learned more stuff. Why had it come to this, I wondered. Cleaning suddenly felt particularly pointless. I decided to go make some tea and see if Hijikata was in his room. Hijikata, I brought you some tea. I opened a door as I spoke, and stopped halfway in when I saw Sanan and Heisuke. Oh, fun. All 3 faces were set in hard lines. Whatever I interrupted was serious. I'm so sorry. I didn't realize you were in the middle of a meeting. I began to back away as quickly as I could when...
Come on, ここにいろ.
You can stay. His words froze me in place, but before I could reply, Sanan spoke. Hey, I haven't seen you in your new clothes. You guys kind of match.
羅刹隊の増強を中止せよとは、一体どういうことです？
You can't possibly be serious about this. Why would you cancel augmentation of the Fury Corps?
そのままの意味だ。今後、羅刹隊の隊士を増やすつもりはねえ。今いる人員で何とかしてくれ。
I am serious. There won't be any more Furies. Make do with what you have.
その命令には納得できません。今の新選組の兵力を考えると、羅刹隊の増強は急務のはずです。
I'm sorry, but I can't support your decision. But Shinsengumi's manpower is an all-time low. It seems to me that expanding the Fury Corps should be a top priority.
先ほどヘイスケから聞きました。長倉君と原田君が脱退してしまったと。彼らの離脱は相当の痛手です。
Heisuke told me that Nagakura and Harada have left. It's a serious blow to us, Hijikata.
新たな大使を募ったところで、所詮は烏合の衆。敵が接近してくればすぐに逃げ出してしまう。
Even if we can recruit more warriors, they'll just be more rabble, and as soon as they're sent into battle, they'll flee.
そんな者たちに期待をかけるより、我々羅刹隊の力をもっと生かすべきではないですか。
Wasting our energy on men like that is foolish. Don't you think it'd be better to concentrate our efforts on expanding and improving the Furies? What happened to you? Your hair's so different. Okay. Heisuke looked down at the floor. He said nothing since I had arrived, but it was clear from his face that, Fury or not, he didn't always agree with Sanan.
確かにあんたの言う通りだ。兵力を増強することだけ考えるなら、羅刹隊を強化するのが一番手っ取り早い。
You have a point. If all we want to do is increase our strength, then the fastest way to do that is to focus on the Fury Corps.
ならば、どうして？
Then why do you?
だが、羅刹には重大な欠陥がある。これは、信頼できる筋から得た情報だ。
There's a problem with the Furies. A big one. We only just found out about it. Our source is reliable. He meant to tell Sanan what he had learned from Amagiri.
羅刹の力の源は、その人間の寿命だ。つまり、力を使えば使うほど、この先生きていられる時間が短くなる。
The power of the Furies comes from your, I guess you could say, potential. Basically, the more you use it, the shorter your life gets.
なんですって？
What? Sanan's eyes, usually so cool and calculating, went wide as saucers behind his glasses.
つまり、そういうことだ。やむを得ねえ時を除いて、羅刹の力はなるべく使わねえに越したことはねえ。
Yeah, well, we shouldn't be using the Furies unless we really have to. Actually, I think Sanan's been using it a lot, hasn't he? The color had drained from his face. Silence filled the room for several long seconds before Sanan finally raised his head and spoke.
でしたら、なおさら研究を進めるべきでしょう。
Then that is yet another reason why our research should continue.
その欠陥というのも、現時点でのものに過ぎません。
It is a flaw, yes, and a serious one.
研究を続ければ、欠点を補う方法も見つかるかもしれない。
But with more research, we may find a way to circumvent it, or even to counteract it entirely.
それは、羅刹となった君のためにも必要なことのはずです。
As a fairy yourself, surely you understand the necessity. Hijikata's expression didn't change.
副長命令だ。羅刹の研究は中止してくれ。もちろん、部隊の増強もなしだ。
This is not a request, Sanan. This is an order. As your commander, I am telling you that research on the Furies will stop. There will be no more Furies. Sanan looks so freaking pissed. Sanan said nothing. Instead, he simply glared at Hijikata a second stretched to minutes.
Sanan-san, 行こうぜ。
Let's go, Sanan. He sat unmoving for a few more moments until at last he sagged and defeated and turned to Heisuke.
わかりました。
Very well. Sanan and Heisuke had turned to leave the room when...
あれ、近藤さん、こんなところで何してるんだ？ どこかに出かけんの？
I think he was eavesdropping. Oh, Kondo, what are you doing here? Going somewhere?
あ、いや、ちょっと散歩に出ようと思ってな。たまたま通りかかっただけだ。気にしないでくれ。
Oh, no, I'm just out for a walk. Just passing by. Don't mind me. I heard them exchanging a few short pleasantries in the hallway, and then 3 sets of footsteps faded away. The room grew awkwardly silent. Hijikata sighed and let his gaze drift out the window. The tea's cold now. I'll go pour you a new one. I stood to leave, desperate to be away from that room and its stifling atmosphere.
いや、これでいい。喉が渇いてるからな。これくらいのぬるさでちょうどいいんだ。
No, this is fine. I'm thirsty. Cold tea's perfect. He took a sip and sighed again, quietly, a distant look in his eyes. The workload he had taken on was tremendous, and he was tired all day, every day, but he looked drained, more so than those things could be accounted for. How hard had Nagakura and Harada's departure hit him?
新八と原田の足抜けは相当の痛手か。
He's right about Senpachi.
返す言葉もねえや。
Sorry, I didn't mean to cut you off. He's right about Senpachi and Harada leaving. That hurts bad. His voice shook almost imperceptibly, and his mouth curled into a bitter smile as he spoke.
ま、いずれこうなるだろうってのは覚悟してたし、あの二人に夢を見せてやれなかったのは俺たちの落ち度だからな。
Well, I had a feeling this might happen someday. It's our fault for falling short of what they wanted.
目指してる先が違うんなら、それぞれの道を行くのが当然だ。義理だとか情に縛られる必要なんてどこにもね
え。If what we're fighting for and what they're looking for aren't the same, then why wouldn't they leave? Don't need to let feelings or loyalty tie you down.
だから、あれでいいんだ。あいつらはあいつらでやっていくさ。俺たちが俺たちの道を行くみてえにな。
It's over now, and that's fine. They'll be all right on their own. So will we. I got the feeling that Hijikata's words were more for himself than for me.
それにしても、新選組も人が随分減って、様変わりしちまったな。
Damn, we sure have lost a lot of people. Things are different. His eyes were focused on something far away, and his voice had dropped a little more than a mumble. I couldn't even imagine what was going through his head. To be a leader and command the loyalty and obedience of tens or hundreds of men was something I couldn't begin to understand. Every night, he worked until the sun came up. It was painful for the Furies to be up and about during the daylight hours, but that didn't stop Hijikata. Every day he met with representatives of the shogunate. Even I could see the horrible toll it was taking on his body. What could I do for him? Tell him to stop. Tell him to rest. Stop, man. Please, Hijikata, you have to stop. His eyes snapped back into focus and swiveled to stare into mine.
やめろってのはどういう意味だ?
What? His voice was much harder than I expected, and it gave me pause. No, I thought to myself, this was something I had to say. I'm only telling you to do what you told Sanan to do a few minutes ago. Don't use your fury abilities unless it's an emergency. His eyes narrowed. Oh, he's still pissed.
なぜお前にそんなことを指図されなきゃいけねえんだ?
Why should I listen to you? Well, his glare was unnerving. Well, you became a fury because you're protecting me from Kazama. If you hadn't had to fight a demon, then you'd still be a human now, and you wouldn't have had to.
前に言わなかったか。俺は俺の意志で落ち水を飲んだんだ。誰に強制されたわけでもねえ。
This again. Look, I told you. I chose to do this. Nobody forced me.
お前がつまらねえことに気を回して思い悩む必要なんてねえよ。
Stop worrying about that stuff. He sounded quite calm and nonchalant, as if he had already accepted his approaching death. But was that really true? Or only an act he had put on to ease my mind? I could have even be at peace with bargaining away at their life, no matter what sort of power such a bargaining might grant them. When you say things like that, it just makes it worse. If you're in pain, please just say so. Can't you just tell me the truth? Don't you wish you had never become a fury? For a moment, the room was silent, and then Hijikata began to laugh.
かなわねえな、本当に。
Man, I just can't win with you, can I? Not really, no. But yay, romance!
いや、お前もそういうところは江戸の女なんだなって思ってよ。
You really are an Edo girl, aren't you? I was rather stunned. Laughter and levity certainly hadn't been the reaction I had expected.
前に話したっけか。俺は玉の百姓の家の末っ子でな。
I didn't know that. I think I told you this before, haven't I? Anyway, I'm the youngest kid in my family. They're farmers in Tama.
親父もおふくろも割と早くに亡くなっちまったから、4つ上の姉貴に面倒を見てもらってたんだ。
My mom and dad both died when I was still young. That meant my sister, who was about 4 years older than me, had to raise me.
その姉貴の喋り方が、お前に少し似ててな。
You sound
当時
kind
の姉のミツさんも同じような感じだったな。
I keep cutting them off. I'm so sorry. You sound kind of like her. Souji's sister, Mitsu, sounds the same way too.
身内に叱られてるみたいで、言うことを聞かなきゃならねえような気にさせられちまう。
When you go off, it's like I'm getting scolded by my family. Makes me feel like I've got to listen to you. Really? I never heard of him talk about his childhood like this before. It felt surreal.
あの天霧とかいう鬼が説明してた通りなら、羅刹の力を使わなきゃ寿命が縮んだりはしねえってことだろう。
If what Amagiri told us is true, then so long as I don't use my fury powers, I'll be fine, right?
本当にどうしようもねえくらい辛くなったらそういうさ。だから、心配するな。
If it gets bad, I'll tell you. Stop worrying about me. He'd likely still keep most of the pain to himself. That was just who he was. But if he really meant what he told me when he became unbearable... Alright, I understand. I take his word for it, this time. So, what will the Shinsengumi be doing now?
とりあえず近藤さんに気合を入れ直してもらって、北に行こうと思ってる。
Well, we're going to need to get Kondo back on his feet first. But after that, we plan on heading north. North? He nodded slowly.
今の幕府は頼りにならねえが、東北諸藩が残ってる。会津仙台が中心になりゃ、まだまだ戦えるはずだ。
Right now, the shogunate is about as useful as tits on a bull, but we've still got the northeast. If Aizu and Sendai can hold the center, then we still got a chance.
松本先生の手配で、流山に武器弾薬、そして人を集めてもらってるんだ。そこで皆と合流して会津に向かう。
Dr. Matsumoto is rounding up some men, weapons, and ammunition for us at Nagariyama. We'll meet up there and then head to Aizu.
仮に江戸を薩長に取られたとしても、奴らはいずれ京都に戻らなきゃならねえはずだ。そうなったら、すぐ江戸を取り戻して。
Even if the rebels manage to take Endo, they'll probably have to fall back to Kyoto eventually. Once they do that, we can take Endo pretty... Suddenly his body twisted and hunched, and he grasped a hand on his suddenly heaving chest. Oh, this doesn't sound good. Yeah, just let him do that. Hijikata's eyes bulged from his head in pain, and he began to sweat, hundreds of tiny beads appearing all over his face. Hijikata, what's wrong? He only shook his head, unable to speak through the pain. I had seen him like this before. Is it the bloodlust? He didn't respond, but I'd known I was right even as I asked. Gave it some book, gave him some medicine, made him endure it. The choices. I feel like this is a very titular moment. I must think this through. Okay, so... I guess... Be good, we're gonna help. Hijikata was in pain. I had no other choice. With steady hands, I pulled my sword from my scarab and laid the edge against my fingers, ready to cut. But Hijikata's hand on my wrist stopped me. Why? The pain will go away if you drink blood. I tried to pull away, but he held fast and shook his head.
俺がやる。お前はじっとしてろ。
I'll do it. Just sit still. What? He moved around behind me and loosened my collar. I felt the cool air touch my neck, followed by Hijikata's fingers. He was looking for a place to make the cut. A moment later, I felt the kiss of the cold blade against my skin, and then, without a sound, I felt it sink in. I bit my lip in pain, but said nothing. Oh, this picture. Okay, anyway. His warm lips touched the cut on my neck, and then I felt his face press against me as he began to drink. Again and again he drank, as thirsty as a man who had been stranded in the desert. I could feel his breath on my skin. It made me shiver. Never before had I been so close to a man. Nerves made my body begin to twist until Hijikata's hand grabbed my shoulders. When he spoke, his voice was low and husky. Don't turn around. Okay. I realized suddenly that he didn't want me to see him in his fury state. Those few words, at least, strained defense of his wounded pride, tore at my heart, and I felt a lump rise in my throat. For his sake, I did my best to be calm by breathing and rapid from nerves and excitement. Though I did my best to hide it, there was no denying that my heart was beating faster and faster. I'm sorry. I just can't afford to lose it right now. Was he saying that to convince me? Or to convince himself? Of course, I understand. You don't have to hold back. I want to help in whatever way I can. The day that I watched Inoue and Yamazaki die, I felt a horrible, torturous regret. There had been nothing I could do for them. Ever since, I cursed myself for being unable to help the Shinsengumi after they had sheltered and protected me for so long. But now, at least, there was something I could do. I could ease Hijikata's thirst. I felt his grip on me tighten. Emotions washed over me. Guilt, disappointment, anger, regret. And I realized they were Hijikata's. His hands were warm. Eventually, he let go, slowly, and stepped away. His breathing had returned to normal, and there was color in his face again. With the back of his hand, he wiped the last of blood from his lips and sighed with relief. Sorry for doing that to you. Oh, no, it's nothing. See, the cut's already closed up. I shrugged my collar back up my neck and smiled. I'll be staying here for quite a while. So, if you need me, please, just let me know. Oh, I was expecting more. Okay. You're telling me I can drink your blood whenever? Yes. I nodded and he gave me a crooked smile. Shouldn't say things like that, kid. Someone's gonna use you up and throw you away. He was only joking and I knew it, but there was a part of me that felt if it was Hijikata who used me up, then maybe it wouldn't really be so bad. Sometime after that incident, we were moved again to the Kaneko mansion in Nagareyama. Okay. It's like, I don't know what I expected from that. Anyway, residence used by Shinsengumi as its garrison before it's advanced to Nagareyama. That is a mouthful. Nagareyama. I'm probably messing that up, but that's the best I can do right now. Kondo had become reluctant to go into battle, but after several talks with Hijikata, he was eventually convinced otherwise. Until we finished our preparations for a journey to Aizu, we would be training in Nagareyama. I was told Saito was off in some place called Ichikawa, where he would be training in the use of new and modern raiment. Sana and Heisuke had left with the Fury Corps along the Utsunomiya route to Aizu since they couldn't go to the Kaneko mansion. Ever since we had arrived, Kondo had seemed like an entirely different person, listless and without any kind of drive. His days were spent in his rooms reading books or on the porch staring at flowers. It was easy to see that he was depressed by his loss at Kofu. Eventually, he would get over it and go back to his normal, cheerful self. Or at least that's what we all hoped. Kondo, I brought you some tea. I sat down the tea and snacks I had brought on his reading table.
Ah, arigato.
Oh, thank you. He paused in the act of flipping a page to smile up at me. What are you reading?
三国志演義に清少記に。まあ、軍記物の小説ばかりだな。
Oh, I'm reading The Romance of the Three Kingdoms and the biography of Kiyomasa. Military books, basically. I actually do want to read The Romance of the Three Kingdoms. A novel describing the turbulent period of Chinese history that began in the late Han Dynasty and lasted for nearly 100 years, known as the Three Kingdoms era. Inexplicably popular in Japan. The biography of Kiyomasa, a biography of Kiyomasa Kato, a general from the Warring States period.
もう暗唱できるくらい読み込んだんだが、何度読み返しても新たな感動があってな。
I practically know them by heart by now, but every time I read them, I find something new to be fascinated by.
子供の頃は思ってたもんだよ。いつか完成帝君みたいに立派な武将になって、自分ではない誰かのために戦おうって。
When I was young, I wanted to be just like Kansei Teikun, a legendary warrior. I wanted to fight for someone other than myself. A defection by the group of Ganyu, the highly revered general who served the Chinese Emperor Louis B. Shu, one of the Three Kingdoms. Oh gosh, Chinese, that's harder. His grin made his face look like that of a little boy, but after a moment the grin faded.
ただ、願うだけでは名将にはなれんのだな。それに気づくのがちと遅かったようだ。
But I guess dreaming about being a great commander doesn't make you one. I wish I'd realized that a little earlier. He shut the book softly and sat down on top of his desk. What are you talking about? You've only just begun. But he didn't even seem to hear me.
トシはどうしている？
How's Toshi? I think he's up in his room, writing something. Probably orders for Saito. He's off in Hijikata right now, you know? Kondo's hand sagged towards his chest.
そうか。トシには無理ばかりさせているな。
Oh, I keep giving Toshi so much to do. I don't think he's pushing himself too hard. And nothing makes him happier than being able to help you out. That's just the kind of guy he is. Kondo laughed.
すっかりトシの故障役が板についているな。あいつのことをよくわかってるじゃないか。
You've really turned out to be quite an asset to him, haven't you? I think you know him quite well by now. You think so? He seemed quite serious about it, and I felt my cheeks getting warm. That's right. Back when I first got here, I was supposed to be his page or something.
そうだな。まさかこんなに長い付き合いになるとは、あいつも予想してなかっただろう。
Ah, yes. I never thought you'd be here for so long, to be honest. Before I knew it, we were reminiscing about the time we'd spent in Kyoto. Back then, we never would have guessed that the Satsuma Chonso lines would take control of the imperial court. Okita had been healthy, Inoue and Yamazaki had still been alive, and Nagakura and Harada hadn't left. Every day was fun and exciting. But I know things will work out. Hijikata will get us through this. He responded with a melancholy laugh.
だがな、雪村君。俺はそれも酷じゃないかと思うんだよ。
Don't you think you're asking quite a bit of him, Yukimura? What do you mean? Before he could answer, the door slid open with a snap, and Hijikata and Shimada ran in, their faces tense and drawn.